The Statistician-General Risenga Maluleke has released the Census 2022 report, announcing that the country's population has grown to over 62 million. Now, the census registered a 31% undercount rate, meaning about a third of the people in households were not counted at all. At least 3 billion rand was used for the project. Mr. Maluleke speaks to us now. A very good morning to you. Now, we know that the issue of undercounting, it's not new. In 2011, the then Statistician-General announced that there was a 14.6% undercount. What are the issues and the factors that have led to such an astronomical escalation from 14.6% to 31% of an undercount?
Good morning, Tammy, and let me greet the viewers, and let us go straight to the issues that influenced the undercount. There were largely three. The first one is that we were conducting this census in the space of COVID-19. So when you look at it, right at the height of COVID-19, we sent our field workers, and members of the public could not readily trust people they do not know into their households or their dwelling units. That is the first one. The second issue is that there were floods that caught up with us, and there were unrests in two provinces particularly, as you will remember, in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. But leading up to that, throughout 2020, 2021, our tests were quite impacted by the way in which COVID-19 made members of the public and the way the lockdown occurred. And we didn't run tests in two provinces, that is KwaZulu-Natal and the Western Cape. And if you will remember, these two provinces, particularly after Gauteng, they are the ones that are the most populous. Nonetheless, I don't want us to spend all the time on the issue of the undercount, because then if we didn't publish it, we would not know. Why did we know about the undercount? It's because after the census, when there was no longer COVID, when there were no longer protests or the issues of flooding, we conducted immediately after the census fieldwork undertaking. We conducted what we call the post-enumeration survey. And the post-enumeration survey made us compare record for record the number of people that we may have counted more than once or those that we may have missed. Now, knowing how many people we have missed in the form of 31% nationally and varying at different levels, varying according to sex, age, and different levels of society, we were able to adjust accordingly. So the undercount is used as a coverage test measure and indeed in understanding content measure. And once we understand that, we were able to adjust the population accordingly to an estimate of 62 million, which is what the population of South Africa is. So the undercount becomes very, very useful in getting to the final count of the population.
I wonder, Mr. Maluleke, how much confidence does one actually have in the accuracy of these numbers, especially because so much adjustment has actually had to be done in order to mitigate all of the various issues that you had. Initially, censuses were happening after every 5 years. South Africa decided to do them now after every 10 years, I believe, due to issues of resourcing. Could the census not then have been postponed to a little bit later, when perhaps the environment and the climate would allow you to be able to reach as many South Africans as you possibly can, just so that you actually do get as accurate as possible numbers?
The first thing is that government used what we call a medium-term expenditure framework, meaning that you budget not only for a year, you budget 3 years in advance. Had we postponed the census, we would have had to do it in the year 2031, which would have been 20 years after the fact. And we at Statistician, based on the budgets and the funding we had, we could not allow the country that delay. Now, you are asking the question, how reliable are these numbers? If they were not reliable, we would not have made them available. Firstly is that it's not only ourselves at Statistician who say these numbers are reliable. We have a Statistics Council, the South African Statistics Council, which is independent of Statistics South Africa, which has had to bring in international and local experts to look at different variables. And they advise, that is the Statistics Council, they advise the Minister and the Statistician-General, but on methods, they advise the Statistician-General. And they came back and said the census is fit for purpose, but it's also what we ourselves in Stats SA were seeing, and we were comfortable, but we needed extra eyes and hands in the nature of how statistics are conducted all over the world. So in terms of reliability, the numbers are reliable and they will stand the test of time.
I was thinking about the difference, Statistician-General, between a sample and a census. At what point does one actually draw the line? When you've got such a small base of people that you actually have spoken to, would it not be closer to qualify this more as a sample than a census, as many households and many individuals are actually not spoken to?
Tami, we have conducted a large sample survey in 2006. We reached out and the sample size was 280,000 households. We were able to estimate at a national level. We were able to reach a sample survey in what we call the community survey in 2016. And we were able to reach to 1.5 million households. And we were able to come up with the estimate of the nation. In the census, and we were not sampling in this regard, so it's not a sample. The census is not a sample survey. We reached more than 10 million households. So compared to 2006, where it was 280, less than 500,000, it was just about 250,000. Look at 2017, where we reached 1.5 million households. Now, having reached more than 10 million households in a census, not in a sample, that was enough to give us enough confidence. But not only that, we do confidence limits on every variable. And the confidence limits are quite narrow to tell us that we are much more on solid ground. So the census is fit for purpose. If it was not fit for purpose, we would have been the first one to say that we are not publishing the results.
Mr. Risenga Maluleke, Statistician-General, thank you so much for your time.